And we are live. Welcome to Not Tiny Tabletop. I'm John from Tiny Workbench, and today we're going to do something a little bit different, right? So today, what I'm going to call this thing is it's Behind the Workbench. It's kind of like a chill stream where I just talk about like some of the like development diaries and some of the thoughts when we were creating Aeons of Adventure, right? So you can kind of just join us on this journey. Well, join me on this journey as we talk about things like, who are we, why did we start making Aeons of Adventure, what are some of the things that we considered when we were actually creating the game, and why we took it that way in the end, right? So if at any point in time, if you have any questions, feel free to just drop the questions in the chat. But if not, I have a bunch of topics. I'll just go through the different topics and I'll just cover them as and when, right? So we'll probably run the stream for like maybe an hour or so. Yeah, and I'll just roll. Let's see what we can do. So this is going to be not so. There's not going to be a lot of like new information in as to masteries and like details of mechanics and whatnot. But we'll talk about like why exactly we did those things. Yeah. Okay. So I have a list of different topics, and most of them are questions as to like why we did certain things. And so I'm just gonna put them in a little box above, which is gonna be here. So these are gonna be kind of like the topic headers as I speak about these things, right? So if you guys just joined, hi, I'm John from Tiny Workbench. This is Behind the Workbench, where we just talk about some of the some of the design processes and my development thoughts and the thoughts of some of the other guys who are working on the project about Aeons of Adventure, right? So I'm just gonna start. If at any point in time you have a question, just drop it in the chat, right? I will check it on my phone. It's not gonna be instant, but I'll try to keep up, right? So who exactly are we? So we're Tiny Workbench. We are a company that is based in Singapore. So it started by me and Mickey. If you've seen Mickey in our first 3 streams, I think. So we started Tiny Workbench in like 2023, and we were initially focusing on D&D art, right? So Dungeons and Dragons, and then it was mainly like doing commissions and designing and developing other people's characters for their own D&D campaigns and whatnot. And so I can't speak for Mickey because he's not here, but I'm going to speak for myself. So I'm an artist by trade, concept artist, illustrator, and if you know my ex, you can go there and check out all of my art and stuff like that, right? So if you follow our all of our socials, especially on Instagram, almost all of the art is mine, right? So that's who we are. And just for a little bit of background about myself, so I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since I think like 2019 now. So I'm not a very old player. Like I am very familiar with the concept of TTRPGs for a very long time, but realistically, I've only been properly playing D&D for the past 6 or 7 years now, right? So very newbie compared to a lot of all the old D&D players and GMs and whatnot, right? But for the DM, so I mainly DM the game. I don't really play the game much. Don't really have much of an opportunity to play at the table itself. So I am very familiar with things that are related to DMing, running games for other players, and what players do that they don't notice that only DMs can solve. So if you're a DM, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Personally, I like fantasy. So well, as you can see, so like Final Fantasy JRPGs. I grew up on things like Diablo, Warcraft. Warcraft is a very big influence, right? Warcraft and Final Fantasy mainly. And if you have seen some of our stuff already, if you have seen our skills, you have seen our masteries and our races, hopefully you can see the influences right there, right? So we've played a lot of, personally, I play a lot of MMOs, especially. Like I grew up playing a lot of MMOs, right? And MMOs have definitely taken on a very big influence into the design decisions that were made for races, for masteries, why we even chose to go with this whole like classless, like skill leveling system and whatnot, right? But yeah, so in terms of like D&D stuff, I've mainly played 5th edition 2014, right? 2024, I think I played like two sessions of it and never touched it again because they have cut back so many things that at this point, I'm just waiting for 2024 to catch up back to where it was with 5.5e now, right? So catch up back to where it was before it jumped to the 5.5e version. And maybe I'll touch it again. But the thing is that one of the reasons that we actually started making Aeons of Adventure is because I hated so many things in 5th edition, right? Like, I have researched 3.5e, AD&D, Basic, and 4th edition especially, right? And there are a lot of things that were good there that were completely cut when they created 5th edition for the purposes of streamlining. And so that was one of the reasons that we actually went over to start making this project, right? And many of the influences actually came from, especially 4th edition. I know a lot of people don't really like 4th edition. Like, it's not a popular thing, but I think there were a lot of things that were really cool. A lot of technical things, a lot of things that were learned from MMOs that were just thrown away with the bathwater simply because it was called D&D 4th edition. But looking at other companies like MCDM doing Draw Steel and seeing that they have also done a very similar thing, it gave us quite a lot of hope. We actually designed this whole thing. I wouldn't say that it happened before Draw Steel, but I didn't hear of Draw Steel when we were thinking about the idea, and when it came out, we were like, oh, that's pretty similar, right? So yeah, that's about who I am specifically, right? And as to the company, so we're Tiny Workbench, and then based in Singapore, as I mentioned just now, and right now we're working on Aeons of Adventure, right? So that is a product. It's going to be a Kickstarter project. The pre-launch page is already in the description below. You can follow all of our channels and whatnot. All of the social medias, all of the good stuff is below. So give this channel a like, subscribe, and a comment, right? Yeah. So if you go to the pre-launch page, you can see the Kickstarter, and those are the things that we're trying to offer. So we're offering actually like a basic set, right? The basic set, the idea is that when we offer this product, you can take this thing. It's going to be very simple. It's not going to have like a 300-page rulebook. It's a 64-page rulebook. If you're familiar with Essentials Kit, basic, what do you call that? I don't remember the other name. The starter kit, I think, for D&D. And a lot of the other box sets, I think you'll be quite familiar with what we're trying to offer here. People can just pick up the box, set it up within, I think, like 15 to 20 minutes and just start playing a session. And it comes with an adventure that is roughly 5 to 6 sessions long. So if you want to play something that is not too long, it's not like a full campaign, right? It's kind of like a long quest, right? Each session roughly 3 to 4 hours. That's going to come with the basic set, right? And it should be good for a decent amount of time. And hopefully people can try out different characters and try out different routes throughout this little adventure, right? So that's going to be... Okay, so how this stream, I've structured it in my head, right, is that with each prompt, I'm going to give it a little bit of a break here and there, and then later I'll try and like slice it. But I will change the prompt as I change on to a new topic. So if at any point in time you have any question, just drop it in chat, right? I need to check whether I can actually see. Yeah, okay, I can see it. All right. So I'm gonna swap a prompt now. Well, the question, right? So I've actually gone through this exact topic about what inspired Aeons of Adventure in another stream, but I'm just gonna cover it again just to ramble on a little bit about it. So initially, when we were thinking about games to make in general, so this is not specific to TTRPGs, right? We actually just got at that point in time, we just bought like a pre-cut machine and a printer and everything and all the stickers and stuff, right? So we were just thinking like, oh, you know what are some things that we could make that is fun for people to collect little objects, and then like, you know, we wanted to focus on a tactile experience for could be a board game, could be a game, could be anything really, right? And personally, I'm a very big fan of playing ARPGs, so like Path of Exile, Diablo, farming games where you have a lot of loot and gear and stuff like that, where you obtain items and skills rather than building your specific class. Not talking about Diablo 4, right? And the initial idea actually came when there was going to be something like a little bit of a... Okay. So it was going to be kind of like a little character sheet. So this is the character sheet that we have right now for AoA, right? It was initially going to be like a character sheet with a picture of a person on it, right? And we would print little stickers, and you would collect the stickers, and you would paste the different equipment onto the sheet, right? And then as you adventure, you travel, and then you gain like stickers, and you can like gear up, and visually it changes a lot. But in terms of mechanically, it's consumable, right? Like, you'll consume a sticker, so it's probably not the smartest idea. So going along that same kind of train of thought, which is that, okay, so what are some physical things that we can give out, and the physical things can represent your growth and help you to develop your character, and eventually becomes a game, right? And then, oh yeah, of course, I'm already playing D&D, right? So creating a TTRPG was kind of like the logical solution there, right? And from that point on, that was when we started like, okay, what are some things that are physical and tactile that we can use to represent things in TTRPG? Uh, First thing, we immediately just went straight to cards, right? Because I'm familiar with trading card games like Vanguard, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Duel Masters, MTG, all that stuff, all the good stuff, right? But the thing is that it's not that special. Like, a lot of RPGs also have cards as an accessory. It's not a core component of their game. So we were thinking like, okay, how do we actually make it more uh, much more of a core component of the TTRPG, right? So cards initially. So this is not a old card. This is a newer card, right? That we printed. I think for the last playtest. So the last playtest we playtest the entire adventure. So we went through all five quests, and then it took, I think, a total of 2 months or something like that. It spent quite a while, and it was a great playtest. We got to see everybody playing different builds, different stuff, and all that good stuff, right? But so we have done playtests for the past 2 years or so, right? And throughout it, we have been changing the design of a card. And the initial goal of the card was, okay, we want to represent things that would help you to progress in a TTRPG. So those are things like what? Skills, items, feats, traits, passives, things that are obtainable, gainable, right? Learnable, right? And eventually it became this thing where, okay, why don't we just make just about everything that isn't mundane, right? So isn't food rations, water bottles, camping equipment, into a card, right? Our initial design had everything as a card. Your normal swords, your shields, everything, right? And it's very cool because you get to see all of your like your basic stats, your details, all of your actions out there as cards, right? But it reached a point where it's like, okay, now I have too many cards. Like, do I really need a card for a dagger and a sword and whatnot, right? And then that was when we also decided to go into this thing where we have 2d6. So for some information, based in Singapore, right, it's not particularly easy to get a D20 in Singapore, any weird dice in Singapore, or Asia in general. So we decided to go with like a D6, because everybody has a D6. If you play Mahjong, if you play, especially in like Chinese, Japanese regions, usually people have some kind of a Mahjong kit somewhere, right? So if you play Mahjong, you have 6-sided dice, right? And so we decided to go, okay, let's just use 6-sided dice. But it came to the problem where, okay, we can't roll damage because you only have a D6. And if you add an additional D6, that becomes really, really powerful. So what happens is we went on to, okay, we eliminate the damage roll, right? Controversial, some people remove the hit roll, we decide to remove the damage roll. You get to why, right? We remove the damage roll, and we, to speed up the process of combat and stuff like that, and we decided to keep the hit roll, which is now split into 3 different rolls. They're all the same thing, it's just called different things. But you roll 2d6, you add the number together, and then it has to beat the target number, so you hit and you roll up, right? And with a card, what we can do is we can actually put the outcomes, sort of like an outcome table, right? Which is like you scale from 1 to 6, 7 to 10, 11 to 12. So sort of like an outcome table onto the card itself, right? And with that is when we just, okay, like that's it. That's the core mechanic that we have now. We can put this kind of concept onto everything. We didn't exactly do a range because that can get quite confusing over time. So what we ended up doing is that we decided to take the 2d6 system, and when you roll a single 6, it counts as a tier up, and you roll a second 6 and it counts as 2 tiers up. So you have successes, great successes, and critical successes, which means that the opposite is also true, right? Which is that if you roll a 1, it's a great failure, and you roll 2 ones and it's a critical failure, right? So it eliminates all of the smaller numbers and the smaller outcomes in between your traditional D20 roll, which is a linear graph, right? Which is 1 to 20, right? So it's a 5% increase per value, and if you add a value, it's another 5% up, right? And instead, we have once you pass a number, it's a success, and then 1 in 6, you get a great success, right? So it's a U-shaped graph, right? Or like bell curve, right? So you have low chance of a critical failure happening, and then high, and then low chance of a critical success happening, right? And with that concept, we added that onto just about every single card that we can have that is not passive, obviously, because you don't roll in a passive, but passives affect your roll, right? And so with that, now that we have locked in that card concept, we're like, okay, now we design things around that. Problem is, we want to give skills, right? And classes, as cool as they are, if you have a class goes from A to B, right? Unless you have a subclass, which is just a single branch, right? You're limited in the sense that you will always get everything from A to B. You'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'll gain every single skill there, right? Now that's good if you understand what the class is. If, for example, you are a barbarian, right? If you're a barbarian in D&D, you know what barbarians do. You know, they get rage, they get reckless, and all that stuff, right? But that comes from having already played D&D for a very long time, right? We wanted to create this TTRPG to be quick to pick up, like very quick to pick up, right? So all of the information that I want is on the card. You learn it and all that stuff. Very quick and straightforward, right? So the learning curve has to be low. That is one of our requirements that we wanted to do, right? And having played D&D for quite a bit, DMing D&D for quite a bit, right? People forget class features and class traits and all, like they forget those things all the time, right? Even if you write them down, you'll forget them. Even if you have a reference card, you forget them because you didn't choose any of these things. You chose Barbarian and you gain all of these things, right? You chose your subclass and you gain all of these things. Unless you're playing a spellcaster, that's slightly different, right? But besides that, a lot of these features are automatic, right? You just get them. So they're not choices and they're not interesting. And as a player, when you don't choose these things intentionally, you'll forget. You will generally forget what you picked in the first place, right? So having cards and having the fact that all of the details are on the cards, the next natural thing is, okay, why don't you pick a card, right? So we'll offer, depending on the mastery, you will offer all the skills that are available, and you'll pick the skills, right? So every time you level up, maybe you want to gain a skill in Radiance, and if you want to gain a skill in your swords, then you just pick the card. And then as you do this, right, it's kind of like a learning process where you will learn to pick up the skills as well, right? And as we play tested that idea and we tested it out, we tried it with a few couple of people, and it seems to work, right? We decided to take the leap and go, okay, we just cut classes. We just cut classes, and we want to focus on the choice, right? And allowing you to really focus on what mastery you, or not mastery, what fantasy you want, what class fantasy you want. So back to the barbarian thing, right? If you came into a TTRPG session and you're like, okay, I kind of have like an idea of exactly what I want, right? Because I've been watching a TV show, I've been, watching a movie, and I'm like, I want to make this character, right? So the example I like to use is Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian is not a barbarian, right? He barely does barbarian things. He doesn't really rage. He's not reckless. He doesn't do all the savage attack stuff, right? If anything, he's more like a fighter rogue kind of hybrid thing. He's not stupid. He's pretty smart, right? So how do we achieve these things without, well, forcing it in upon them? I'm not sure how to put it. So the goal we had was, we want you to be able to achieve these things without having to think too much, right? We don't want you to jump over hoops. We want you to multi-class here and then have to figure out, okay, I'm like a barbarian and then I multi-class with a rogue. And it doesn't really make sense, but the feature and the skill and the trait is exactly what I wanted on my character. And so instead of doing all of that things, we just dropped all of that and be like, okay, why don't you just pick up the skills that are related straight up? So if you want to be a sword guy, just go pick up a sword skill. If you want to be a fire guy, just pick up a fire skill, right? And instead of giving you classes, that's how the mastery system was born, right? With the mastery system, you literally, if I want a sword, I go learn sword skills. If I want fire, I go learn fire skills, right? And this allows you to really customize the power fantasy that you want, right? And as you might have noticed, I am very focused on the combat side of the TTRPG, which is, that's me, right? I'm more interested in the combat side. And I would say that Taeyang is also only interested in the combat side, right? So I'm still in between. Like as a DM, I still have to focus on roleplay, focus on exploration and stuff like that. I love combat, right? I think combat's really important. Combat is like the most important part about playing a fantasy TTRPG, right? If you are not going around slaying enemies and beating demons and doing all that stuff, I'm not sure why you're playing a fantasy TTRPG. You might as well just be playing a normal RPG, like in terms of like Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that, which are more focused on role-playing mechanics rather than role-playing the adventurous, like heroic parts of it, right? Because, well, I'll get to that later, right? Okay, so that was how the mastery system was inspired and born, right? And then from there on, we decided to take it right down all the way, which is how do you take this mastery system and really blow it up in a way where people feel like they actually have choice and they are choosing, and it doesn't just feel like multi-classing with extra steps. So that led on to the next thing, which was that we actually split armor types and your mastery skills. So in a class, right, you kind of think of it as role-playing skills, combat skills, and then like the armor type, starting gear and stuff like that. Everything is split open. But we have to be careful here, right, which is that we need them to be accessible. Like this concept must be accessible at all times, right? So we split apart. So all of the core masteries became what you guys have seen in the live streams. If you haven't seen them in the live streams, go check them out in the playlist. Have some VODs of them as well. So you can go take a look later. Right, don't take a look now. And then besides that, we split out the armor parts, which has been split into cloth armor, light armor, and heavy armor, right? With that, now suddenly, okay, there's a lot more possibilities now when it comes to what kind of character you want to play. This is less of an issue in Western fantasy and more of an issue when you try to make an Eastern character in a Western fantasy game. I'll give you an example. So cloth armor traditionally kind of sucks, right? Like if you're gonna play a cloth armor in like D&D or Pathfinder or your traditional TTRPG, which is high fantasy combat based, right? It's probably not very good. Depending on your class, of course, right? But usually what they do is that your class makes the cloth armor bearable, right? So this could be things like unarmored defense, right? Stuff like that, or forcing you to have to wear cloth armor to cast spells, right? Giving you a penalty rather than a buff, right? We don't like penalties. That was one thing that from the very start we didn't like, because there's nothing worse than like, okay, like I have a fantasy in my mind, I want to be like a samurai guy, but if you want to be a good samurai guy in your melee, you have to wear heavy armor, and that just feels bad because you're forcing them into this visual fantasy of having to wear all these things, right? So why don't we just separate that part and make all of them viable, but in different ways? So we have cloth armor, we have light armor, we have heavy armor, and they are all good in different ways. So cloth armor is good in evasion, and then heavy armor is protection, and it scales like that, right? And of course, there are armor skills as well. So the armor skills change the way that you fight, and these are things that you can pick up like optionally. You don't have to pick in a level, right? So you can pick them up and it changes the way that you fight. Maybe it makes you faster, maybe it makes you more evasive. If we will go through that in Tiny Tabletop rather than in Behind the Workbench, right? But I'll talk about the concept behind it, right? Which is that when we talk about armor in particular, to me, like when I think of armor, there's a balance aspect of this, and then there is a visual and fantasy aspect of this, right? So balance aspect, there's just a numbers thing, right? We can give that number to any item and it's probably gonna work fine, right? An example would be if you were to play D&D and if you are a wizard or a caster, you have mage armor. You just assume you always have mage armor on. So why not just bake the mage armor into the cloth armor and you just call it a day? Like why go through this extra thing where you have to put it together and all that stuff, right? Why can't I be a paladin, wear cloth armor and just always have mage armor on? It's the same thing, right? Like there's no real reason that it's there. So we split that part off and we wanted to focus on, okay, like what if I want to change the visual fantasy of whatever I'm currently playing, right? So now in our system, you can play that priest kind of like claymore wielding, wearing robes and stuff like that and fighting, and you'll still be fairly balanced. And you're not going to be gimping yourself for just because you want to look cool, wearing robes and fighting with great sword, right? But the way in which you are building your character is different from someone else who's wearing heavy armor, which is very important because in traditional like armor class systems, it's basically evasion, right? Everything is evasion. It's whether it hits or it doesn't hit, right? In AoE, you have protection and then you have evasion. So protection is armor class, armor rating, sorry. Armor rating, and armor rating reduces damage, and evasion is your traditional armor class, right? So having differences in the way that you are designing your character's defenses, I think matters more than the balance of it, of going from light armor to heavy armor and plate armor and stuff like that. And so that was one of the reasons why we actually did that, right? There are skills. So the armor types also have different masteries and stuff like that, right? And thus, if you have seen our current masteries, basically exactly the same thing, just not as many skills on the basic set. Yeah. And yeah, that was the inspiration behind like the mastery system and whatnot. And the very last core pillar, I would say, the core pillar of Aeons of Adventure is actually the monsters. So the monsters, right? This is before what do you call that? Ryoko's Guide. Right. So this is before Ryoko's Guide. We had this idea where, okay, Shadow of the Colossus is really cool. Monster Hunter just came out. This thing is really fun, right? I wanna fight big monsters. Fighting big monsters suck in other TTRPGs. Like it is so lame because everything is forced upon your theater of mind. There's no mechanical implications behind fighting big monsters. Great example is if you were to fight a Tarrasque in D&D, you could technically poke his toe to death, right? You could, if you're a paladin fighting a Tarrasque, right, and you just go to his toe and you smite his toe to death and he would die, right? And that makes no sense. That makes zero sense when you're fighting a large, like, Titanic monster. You're fighting like Godzilla. This guy is the Eiffel Tower and you kill him by stabbing his toe. That makes zero sense, right? So that was one of the things that we also focused a lot on when we were developing AoE, which was we really wanted to get large monster combat down. And so if you have seen our pre-launch Kickstarter page, you might have seen there are some big monsters inside the pictures here and there, right? You will get to fight them if you were to play the preset adventure that's given inside the basic set, right? And we have put a lot of playtests on that, developing what is not a draggy battle, right? Because it can feel very draggy when the monster is too tanky. We wanted to make it exciting, so there are kind of like phases between the different well, let's call the whole thing a battle, right? So when you're fighting a colossal monster, right? There are different phases, right? So you'll fight like a part, and then you'll expose, and then go to the next phase, and go to the next phase, right? So you can think of it as like a raid battle in your MMORPGs or like a dungeon, right? And one of the things that we had to iterate a lot upon, which was getting that pacing right. We didn't want it to feel too fast, nor too slow. It actually felt really fast when we first tried it, right? Because there are some exploits around fighting a big monster. You can imagine if you have AoE attack, does it hit more, right? Because the monster's bigger, right? You fireball, does it hit, you know? So those are a lot of the things that we had to iterate upon, right? Probably go through colossal combat during one of the Tiny Table talks in the future, because it's a whole like large topic by itself. But that is something that we have I think it came out pretty good, right? I won't go too much into it for now because your stream would never end at this point. So with that, I think that's all. So we have covered what inspired the initial idea, right? Why we're 2d6, why masteries, right? And why colossal monsters. And the last thing, well, that was the last thing, but now I just thought about it. There's one more thing, which is that we deleted skills. That can be quite controversial in the sense that, okay, when I say skills, I'm talking about athletics, acrobatics, nature checks, and stuff like that. So we deleted skills. Personally, as a DM, I think skills are good in the sense that you can ask them, you can tell them exactly what they should use to roll. But what I've come to find is that players don't remember their skills generally, right? And it's just a bunch of stats for no reason at all, right? They're not thinking about interesting ways to utilize their skills because they don't remember which skills they had, right? And that's not good. That doesn't encourage roleplay. That doesn't encourage players to play their character the way they are. Of course, there are players who are very focused on their skills, right? But I think that is something that requires effort rather than something that is natural to do, right? So what we have done instead of a skill system is that we have expertise. And with expertise, you choose your skill. You basically create a skill, right? And this is interlinked with your background in AOA. So this is one of the steps of creating a character, which is you choose a background, and your expertise is determined based on that, right? And your expertise, this is something that is, it can be very random. It can be whatever you want it to be, as long as it's specific enough, it's not too broad, and it represents what your character is, right? So if you are, I love to use this example, which is if you are a farmer, right, you could have farming as a expertise. And let's just say, oh, I'm going to go do this challenge, and I could use my farming knowledge to somehow solve this. This could be like, oh, I know the wind direction, I know the soil, I know the conditions of the land because I have worked this land before, right? And instead of using a specific nature farming skill, I can just be like, okay, because it makes sense for my character to know, I'm just going to roll with bonuses, right? And that was one of the things that we wanted to do to also ease in players to figuring out exactly what their character is, right? So if you have noticed now, we are kind of like going in closer onto what we were actually trying to achieve, which is the player fantasy, right? Which is really focusing and creating exactly what character you want to play, right? And with all of these steps, minus the colossal combat, right? That's just cool. I think it ended up with something that we're pretty happy with, and hopefully when you guys get to play the game, it is something that you guys will enjoy as well, right? Okay, so that will be done for prompt number 2. I'm going off topic quite a bit, but well, this is a dev diary thing, so guess I'm just I'm gonna ramble on quite a bit here. Okay, let's go to the third one. Okay, I should have stopped this one just now. Right, so the core concepts, yes. So we've talked about 2d6, masteries, no class, no skills, expertise, and big combat. Big combat, right? Of course, cards, right? So the cards are meant to tell you exactly what skills they are. It helps players to remember the options they have so that they can better embody and remember exactly what kind of character they are in the first place, right? You might have also noticed, right? My character sheet is really small. My hand, right? So most of the player components in AOA are designed to be A5, right? So if you are American, then you have like B4s or B3s or whatever, right? So this is usually like half the size, right? So our character sheets are designed to be A5. Everything that a player has is designed to be A5 and below, right? This is to make it easy for you to carry things around. There's less things to look at, right? You're not distracted by what skills you have and all that stuff, right? It also fits nicely the cards, right? Because if you have, okay, imagine if you're playing a wizard, right, and you have to write down every single skill, assuming that you're playing this physically with an iPad, right? That would take up a lot of paper or a lot of pages and whatnot. And personally, I don't like to use digital devices when playing because it's very distracting, right? Because you're playing the game halfway and then the next moment you are staring at another page, you're staring at like your social media, you're staring at somebody messaging you or something. So I don't think it's a good idea to play with digital devices when you are playing physically. Of course, when you're playing online, everything goes out the window, right? But these are also good tools, even when you're playing a digital game, like for example VTT, right? And you can just kind of mouse over your skill and remember, oh, I had this skill, right? Or I chose this skill rather, and exactly what it does. So yeah, those are the core concepts. Let's go to the next one, which is okay. I briefly mentioned this just now. So type of TTRPG, right? Aeons of Adventure is a tactical 2d6, right? 2d6 resolution, tactical combat focused game, right? This game is focused on combat. Most of the mechanics are combat focused, right? If you are not a combat guy, this is not the game for you. If you're not a combat guy, I'm not sure you enjoy D&D in general as well. You'll probably enjoy games that like PBTA and Blades in the Dark and stuff like that. We are we're not crunchy in the sense that we have a lot of numbers that you have to really go think about, but a lot of our design philosophy is behind things like cool combinations, cool synergies, teamwork, working together to like figure out like this strategy to like beat this monster or to fight this thing, right? That's what we aim to achieve, and that's the type of TTRPG that AOA is. So it is very much combat heavy, and it is very I've said tactical a lot, but it is tactical, right? And one of the things that really emphasizes on the tactical aspect is that AoE is not designed to be played theater of mind for combat, right? It is designed to have a map with grids on them and to count, your 5 feet or 10 feet or your ranges and stuff like that. That's what it's made for. It's not. It can be played theater of mind, but it is not optimal at doing so because a lot of our skills and a lot of the actions are very focused on speed, timing, your range, your distances, and stuff like that. Yeah, and that's the type of TTRPG that personally I like. I like to run them, like to play them, and I am more familiar with players who enjoy combat as well. And I think that people around my age and younger are also generally very focused on combat things. So that is something that we've been brought up with video games and whatnot, right? Like we're playing like RTSs and MMOs and optimizing like rotations and things like that. That is ingrained into us at this point. There's no way you can rip that out of our DNA already, right? So that is something that has become part of our design language and our what we like basically, right? So yep, that is the type of TTRPG. It is not a very like simulationist. It's not particularly simulationist. It's you don't track like every single weight. You don't track your inventory. You barely track inventory, right? However, when it comes to everything that is combat focused, you could say that it is more simulationist, right? We're very particular about how many times you can heal, right? So vitality in the systems. We're very particular about resting, having to eat to kind of force that kind of that gritty survival, like almost Dark Souls-esque traveling Dragon's Dogma, going between quests, that kind of feeling, right? Compared to where in I'm going to use Dungeons and Dragons a lot as an example because I mainly played D&D, right? So in D&D you can short rest a lot, right? And I think short rest is a terrible mechanic for what it achieves because it does so many things for no cost, right? You're basically hand waving your healing, right? And I think it's not very smart. Okay, it's not that it's not very smart. It's just not very interesting, right? For what I am looking for and what my players at my table were looking for as well, right? So that is something that led to the way that we designed AoE. Yep. Okay. If at any point in time you guys have any questions, you can drop it in the chat as well. Okay, so you can just interrupt, no problem one. All right, I'm gonna go to prompt number 5. How are we doing on time? Okay, I think I rambled a lot on the second point because it's kind of like 2 points together. Right, it's 8:37. Okay. So why not 5e, right? I think that a lot of people who initially do Kickstarters and they do TTRPG books and modules and whatnot, right? When they first jump into like the designing space, they usually do something that is just a 5e module, 5e system update, like a homebrew rule, an adventure module maybe, or like a particular mechanic that is missing from 5th edition, right? D&D we're talking about here, right? And yes, that is definitely a safer option, right? Many people do play 5th edition, and creating those things to be 5e compatible is probably financially wise to do so that as many people can pick up the thing and just go, right? However, I have come to find I have a lot of problems with playing 5th edition that just frustrates me when I'm DMing and playing the game, right? I can tolerate these things, but these are not things that I enjoy playing, right? Which is the whole point of me creating a new system for all of this, right? So a lot of these things have become home rules that we already ran. Well, in one way or another, such as the initiative system. Like we don't play. We initially we just ran the normal initiative, which is you roll and then based on your number you run that way, right? And our initiative is round based, so all of the players, all of the enemies, and then everything else. And the enemies and the players can swap, right? So these are things that we have decided to streamline because these are things that are just frustrating to run and play, right? And so if you're designing around 5th edition, you have to design around these rules existing. And that is not very fun, right? And I think that it is more of a hindrance to what we were trying to achieve rather than what is, oops, there was more of a hindrance to what we were trying to achieve rather than being an aid, right? I mean, yes, it's an aid in the sense that more people play it, more people pick it up, maybe more fun, but like at that point, what's the point of designing the game, right? You're not designing a game anymore. You're just creating a homebrew for someone else to play, right? And I think the other thing is that the way that D&D is inherently set up is that if you want to create interesting skills and whatnot, you kind of have to do a subclass. You can't, you can, but it's quite difficult for you to overhaul an existing class in a way that doesn't also destroy the flow of the entire current system. So I'll give you an example is that let's just say we want to achieve what we have in the Swift Edge Mastery right now, right? Which is like this assassin sort of thing. If we give a lot of these skills over to a new subclass that we just put into a 5th edition supplement, right? This thing will be broken. It'll be way too strong, right? And that is something that is just inherently stuck to the 5th edition class system, right? Also, the very fact that you're not really making a choice at that point, you're just going straight line. So if you design assassin, you just play an assassin. If you design like a sword master, you just play a sword master, right? It is exactly this one straight through thing, which is not what we're trying to do as well, which is trying to create basically multi-classing everything. If you're familiar with things like Fabula Ultima, recently I think like there's a okay, that's not a good example. Like Fabula Ultima, Sword World, some of the JRPG more Japanese focus. Okay, Fabula Ultima is not Japanese, it's Italian, I think, but Japanese influence, right? More of the Eastern focus classes and whatnot. By the very nature of them being Eastern, they are not very well represented in D&D, which is a Western focus fantasy game, right? Even like monks are not very accurate per se, right? Or accurate is not the right word, but not very well done. I'm not sure there's a better way to put it, right? Yeah. And with that, there are so many limitations as to the way we can design supplements and rules. And of course, the most important thing is that this also started during the OGL scandal. So if you guys are familiar during, I don't remember which year it was, but there was this whole OGL thing where WotC basically wanted to get royalties on everybody's homebrew supplements and stuff like that, right? So that was a big no-go, right? If you make something and WotC is gonna take it from you for whatever reason, right? I'm not sure how I feel about designing something for that and calling it a product of another company. Strange legal things that I'm not very familiar with, but we decided not to do that, right? It also opened up this field where a lot of people decided to not do 5th edition things, which means that a lot of people are now trying out their own new TTRPGs and whatnot, and we have grown this whole community and industry because of that, right? But yeah, those are the main reasons why we didn't do a 5e supplement, basically. Okay, I think this is the last one. Okay, so I briefly touched on this just now, which is that why are we not doing a D20, right? So we're based in Singapore. It's in Asia. We're not China, right? D20s are pretty hard to get. You're gonna struggle to find a D20 usually, especially when you're. And yes, I understand that most TTRPG gamers are probably in America or in Europe, right? So we're talking like, like the Midwest, talking the UK, Germany. I think mainly those areas. I think Italy is a big one as well, right? And there's not that many TTRPG gamers in the Asian region. Besides, I think like Philippines and Singapore are already like the biggest ones already, right? Japan has like its own thing, but it's more focused on like Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that, right? So D20s are they're like a gate, they're like a wall, right? If I want someone to try out the game, right? Let's just say you don't want to buy the whole set. You just want to go online and look at the rules, and then you just want to look at a PDF of the cards, right? Which you can get in the pre-launch not the pre-launch, sorry. Like in the Kickstarter, we will be offering a digital version, which you'll have a PDF of everything, right? So you could just play the digital version, and you could just go get your own dice, right? Now, if you're in Singapore and you want to go buy a D20, you have to buy it online. There's no option. You're not gonna easily go into a shop and find a D20 unless it's like a specialty, like a game shop, right? And so that was one of the reasons why we just swapped. Okay, like just use the 2d6. Everybody has a 2d6. Everybody has a d6, right? And 2d6 simply because we wanted to weight the outcomes towards the center, right? So that's the second reason, which is that D20 outcomes are linear. The odds of you getting a net 1 and the odds of you getting a net 20 are exactly the same, right? They are both 1 in 20, right? And that also means that every attribute that you add gives you exactly 5% more, right? Good and bad. My design thinking behind like random outcomes for dice, right, is that more often than not for RPGs, you should succeed. So your heroes should succeed about 2/3 to 3/4 of the time, right? If you have a perfect like linear graph, right, even though statistically over a long enough period of time this is true, it doesn't feel like it. It feels like your dice are weighted, right? Because sometimes you just roll low, sometimes you just roll high, right? By having 2d6, you will naturally squeeze all of the outcomes towards the middle, and you are more than likely to succeed with the addition of attributes, your ability score modifiers and stuff like that, right? So that was one of the main reasons that we decided to go with 2d6 instead of 1d anything, basically, right? It also means that when you roll a critical success or a critical failure, which is 2 1s and 2 6s, these are also way more exciting because these are, I think, like 2% rarer than a net 20 and a net 1, right? So you get kind of like the best of both worlds, right? Which is that, okay, you succeed more often, you fail a bit less. When you critical fail, you feel really bad, and you critical success, you feel really good, right? And we have mechanics tied to critical success and failure as well because of the fact that we have 2d6s, right? And not d10s or d8s, but d6s specifically, because when you have a d6, 1 in 6 is pretty easy to hit, right? So we have mechanics that are directly tied to critical successes, great successes, and stuff like that, that directly call for it to happen, right? And that was one of the design spaces that is only enabled because we have the 2d6, right? So there's another reason why we didn't use D20s. Yeah. I think besides that, there's not that much of a reason that oh wait, okay, there's one more reason, which is that because we don't roll damage, right? Everything can be handled by the same dice. The downside to that is if you have tables in your book, so our tables were limited, right? We can only roll 1d6, 2d6, or 6x6 tables, right? Which is the 36. Right. So we're kind of limited in that sense. You can't roll like a D100 or something. We can do like outcome tables, like ranges, but that's what we can do, which kind of forces us to design within a much smaller space to make every single outcome more meaningful, right? But that's more of a limitation rather than as to why we actually chose to roll 2d6. But on the bright side is that you don't have to go about searching for all the different dices. You don't have to search for a D8, a D10, a D12, a D20, and bring all of them to your game, and then have damage. So if you played a spellcaster, you're probably familiar for example, in D&D, if you play a spellcaster, you have many different damage dice, and having like all the dice and having to pick up the correct damage dice and then rolling them all together takes up time per turn in combat, right? And per turn in anything when you're looking for your dice. Having just these sixes, you just pick and go, right? Like literally, if I need all of the dices here are d6s. So if I need 2d6, bam, 2d6. 46, okay, it's all d6s, right? And it speeds up. It really speeds up how fast dice rolling happens in combat and out of combat, right? Because in out of combat you also roll 2d6 and you just need to beat the target number, right? Now you might say, yeah, you can roll a d20 and you also be a target number as well. Yes, but remember, we are a combat-focused game, right? We want combat to feel good. We want combat to be interesting and fun and fast. Important, it has to be fast, right? We want each turn to feel fast. Not the entire combat is fast, but each turn should feel fast enough that you feel like you're making interesting decisions at any point in time, right? Because from our playtesting, I think our combat is roughly the same time. Like it doesn't actually get too much faster. It's about so on average, if you have 4 players and you're fighting 5 to 6 monsters, it takes maybe about 20 minutes, maybe a bit less. If you're fighting more monsters or you're fighting let's just say a boss monster or whatnot, maybe it can take up to 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes for the entire combat, depending on how aggressive or how optimized your team is. Those numbers are conservative and for a non-optimized team, right? I think it's a bit faster, but what's more important is that while you are in the midst of the combat and you're doing the storytelling of the combat during your scene turns and whatnot, it feels fast, right? And that's more important than it actually being fast, in my opinion. Because if it feels fast and you're having fun, it doesn't matter anymore, right? Like you could take 8 hours and if it's fun, it's fun, right? If you're playing a video game, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, which is that whether or not something is tedious is the real problem, right? And so that's what we designed out of it. Plus we have 1 dice, we just use 1 dice type, right? And the chosen dice is d6. Yeah. So with that, we are now pretty much almost an hour in, 15 minutes now. So I'll just talk a little bit about what exactly we have in the Kickstarter, right? So the Kickstarter is the basic set. It comes with so it's this one, right? This is just a draft cover. So the Kickstarter is the basic version of AOA. It goes up to level 5. Well, level 6 realistically. It goes up to level 6. You can play pretty much all of the features. There's nothing that is like very specific that is not in the basic set. The main issue we have is that because we create cards for every single skill, there's a limit to how many cards we can create and how many masteries you can design for you. So we've decided to cap it at that level, and it will come with about 150 cards, 150 or so player cards, and it'll come with I think like 20 plus monster types, so 30 monster types, which will all also be cards, right? So here's an example. So the DM cards are a bit bigger because there's more information behind it, right? So you could just pick up a monster card and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to run this in this encounter. I'm just going to take a look at it. Right. So the same philosophy goes through everything, which is that we want it to be fast. You pick it up, you just go. Just design your things really quick. Is it balanced? Probably not. Right. But hey, the more you play the game, the more you know, right? I don't think comics are designed to be balanced anyway in the first place. So yes, it comes with monster cards, and then it comes with the 64-page rulebook. It comes with the adventure book, which is also 64 pages and takes you from level 1 to 5. And if you beat the final boss, technically you're level 6, right? And that is 5 quests in a single adventure. 5 quests. There's more than 5 quests, but in a single adventure, you're supposed to go through 5 quests, and it should take about 5 to 6 sessions, right? Each one roughly 3 to 4 hours based on our playtest timing, right? Comes with dice, obviously. Comes with a map. So this is the rule book, right? I don't have the print for the adventure book, and it comes with a map, right? So this is the map of the region, right? So it's not like the world map. It's just the map of that continent. So think of it as a kind of like the Icewind Dale, like the Rime of the Frost Maiden, that northern area. I don't remember the name. The 10 towns, right? So think of it kind of like the 10 towns, the equivalent, or like a very small portion of the Sword Coast, right? It's just there to tell you things like, oh, where are these points of interest? What are some things that are nearby? Distances, travel, stuff like that, right? And it's just cool. It's a map, right? It comes with a piece of grid paper, right? 1 inch, your standard. So if you have minis, no problem, right? It's exactly a 1 by 1 inch by 1 inch, and then it'll come with tokens. This is a random. It's a random token that I took from another game, and then we pasted. This is for what do you call that? Like when we were playtesting. So these are little tokens. This is for a pre-gen character, right? And that also brings me on that we also have 5 pre-generated characters in case you don't want to make a character. You have your cousin or your siblings, or maybe like somebody's kids come over, they want to play, right? And you don't want them to go through the character creation process, which is fast, right? Character creation takes like 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. But if you just want them to immediately go, we will have like pre-filled pre-gen characters, and you can just take the sheet, you can pass it to them. We'll probably print every single level, so you don't have to go through the leveling process if you don't want to, right? So for the pre-gen characters, we'll print every single level all the way to level 5, and you can just hand it to them, and they want to play, they can just jump right in, right? So those will be there. 5 different characters. So you have 5 different presets with the 5 different levels. So that's up to about 12.5 pieces of paper, plus minus, right? Wait, let me think. So it should be 3 pieces of paper per 3 A5s per pre-gen character. Yeah. So it comes with the pre-gen, it comes with the dice, comes with the mats, comes with the map, comes with the rules, right? I think that's it, and the cards, obviously, right? So it comes with all of the cards, and all of that will be in the physical box, which will look something like this. So the box is going to be A5, A4, A4. Yeah. So the book is A4, right? And it should go in. This is drafted with an A4 piece of paper, so it's not going to fit in, right? But you can imagine it's going to be roughly this thick. Yeah. If you have the D&D starter kits and the essential kits, they're about the same size. I think the essential kits are a bit shorter, so A4s are a little bit taller. Yeah. So that is what is going to be offered in the basic edition, the basic set, right, of the Aeons of Adventure, the Kickstarter, which is in the link below. So go take a look. Right. We'll probably have tiers with digital only if you want digital only. If you get the physical version, it also comes with the digital, so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to buy like 2 different sets, right? So if you have bought the physical, you will get the digital, and if you just want digital, you can also just get the digital, right? We will also have some other things that are not confirmed yet because we are still thinking about like manufacturing and stuff like that. But we have quite a few like accessories in mind. Could be physical, could be not. We're not sure yet. We need to think about that because logistics and stuff. And the last thing is there will also be, during the launch of the campaign, right, we will also be launching a sort of like a one-shot based on one of the pre-gens. So we'll be launching a one-shot that is free to download on the campaign when it launches. It will be a one-shot based on him, right? So it's a level 1 one-shot. It's meant to be a solo adventure, so you can play it by yourself, or you could run it for someone else. It's if you are already a DM, you probably know how to do that. Like, it's not that complicated. So it's a one shot that is a level 1 solo adventure, and it's meant to teach you the basics. It's kind of like a tutorial of the entire game, right? So it's going to teach you how to make challenge rolls, blast rolls, combat strikes, stuff like that. And it takes you from level 1 to level 2. So it's a very short, kind of like 30 minutes to an hour, maybe even less than 30 minutes, honestly. Like, if you're fast and you know how to play the game already, it will take less than 30 minutes, right? And it also gives you a little bit of a backstory behind the pre-gen characters. So all of the pre-gens do come with backstories, right? They're not like very long backstories. They're very simple kind of premises that talk about why they're there, why they're in this adventure that is inside the basic set, right? And yeah, with the launch of the campaign, we will have that solo adventure one shot available to download, so that you can try out the system before you actually back. Hopefully you back, right? So you give it a shot. There'll be like a digital some cards, what a character sheet looks like, and things like character sheets will be free to download online. Don't worry about that, right? We'll have fillable character sheets, all of the classical like TTRPG stuff, right? If at any point in time I miss anything out, you can just drop a comment somewhere on my social media, which is all in the link below, on our Facebook group and our Discord, right? You can contact us on Discord as well. Or during one of these, hopefully I'll do more. Hopefully these dev diaries are behind the workbench comments, right? So with that, we are pretty much exactly at 1 hour. So I am going to end this stream, right? Yep. Thank you for coming to the very first stream of Behind the Workbench. Yeah, hopefully I'll do more of these. I'll talk about, I've quite a lot of topics to talk about, like why we did certain designs the way we did them, and yeah, hopefully you come and listen. I've been John. Follow all of our stuff I'm signing up.